Hi and welcome back to my channel. I hope that everybody is doing well. I hope that you guys are having a good weekend. I am going to try and make this Q&A video. I say try because I've already tried like 5 other times and it just keeps not happening. Also, there's a big football game going on right now. If you're from Michigan, then you know the Michigan State game is on and my family's home watching that, so there very likely will be yelling in the background. Hopefully that doesn't distract you. If it's really bad, I'll just cut it out, obviously. But also, I'm simultaneously speaking with my grocery shopper right now on my phone, so hopefully I'll silence it. But so I'm like kind of multitasking / just dealing with all the commotion that comes with a home. If I waited until it was quiet and I had complete free time, though, this would never get done. I'm just being real. So I'm going to try and do this Q&A real quick and answer these questions. So many great questions you guys asked me. Definitely all of them I also asked when I was a nurse practitioner student. We all have the same questions, so this should be very relatable to anybody going through the program right now, whatever school. So I'm just going to go through the questions and try to answer them as as matter of fact, I guess, as possible. I'll try not to ramble, but I make no promises because I do ramble. But okay, so we're just going to go through. I have them here on my computer. I'm going to read them and then I will answer them as, what is the word I'm thinking of? Concise. Try to answer them as concisely as possible. So the first question is, hey Brittany, I currently am attending FNP school and here there's a lot of NPs saying they regret their decision. I was wondering if you knew what you do now, would you do NP again? And yes, the answer is I would, because I was feeling a lot of bedside nursing burnout, I guess you would say. I needed a change. I love to learn. I wanted to further my education regardless. And I love the autonomy that comes with being a nurse practitioner. I love asking the why, like why patients are presenting the way that they are or why they are experiencing the symptoms that they are. And I just love continuing to learn, which I'm sure you guys have picked up on since this is my hobby that I'm doing here, just talking about learning things. So yes, so if I knew what I knew now, I would do it. Absolutely, I would do it again. So next question, regarding getting into an urgent care as a nurse practitioner, should I attend a brick and mortar NP program or online? It feels like all of the FNP programs are going online at this point. Yeah, I mean, I agree. A lot of programs are online, and especially now with COVID, I mean, even more so because people are trying to avoid, congregating as much as possible. Well, I don't know. Now they're doing a lot more in person again, but I do agree. There's a lot of online NP schools. I did an online NP school, and I think that honestly, my personal opinion is that you can make the most out of either one. With the online program, I think majority, if not all, are set up in a way that like you have 1 year of didactics, like lectures and presentations, yada yada, papers, all that, and then the following year is all of your clinicals where you're practicing and you're shadowing and you're learning on the site, on the job. And so I think that online or brick and mortar, you can get the exact same thing from, if you are self-disciplined enough, and you need to have that self-discipline to take the time out and make sure that you are devoting, I guess, the appropriate amount of time to learning what you need to learn for that first year, and then the following year going to your clinicals, and where you're going to learn those invaluable lessons about real world practicing is, of course, your clinicals. And that is what you can't skimp out on. And so online NP school, brick and mortar NP school, I don't think it really matters. You're going to have to be self-disciplined regardless. And if you're not, then it's probably not the profession for you. And then the following year, you're going to do your clinicals. And that is where you will learn, obviously, the most. You always learn the most when you practice. So next question. Was it hard to find preceptors? Yes and no. So I did have a lot of connections prior to my program working in the emergency department that I worked at. I was fortunate enough that a few of the physicians that I work with actually own urgent cares local to that area. So I had like already some connects. And then, but that was only for some of them. I definitely also had to really, really try to find clinicals, basically. So I had a lot of connections in that way for some of my clinicals, but the other half, no, I was cold calling place after place after place. I called well over 100 different practices and clinics, and anything I could think of I called just to see if they would have any students. And it was particularly difficult at this time because it was in the worst of the COVIDness. I started my clinicals May 2020. So yeah, it was like smack dab when COVID started. And that luckily, so my first clinical luckily was at the urgent care of the physician that I worked with. So otherwise, I don't think that ever would have happened because no students were getting hours at that time, I felt like. I was fortunate enough, though, that I did. And so that worked out. But then the other ones were really rough. So what I did was I cold called, like I said, over 100 places, and I did get some that way. I got pediatric urgent care by cold calling places. That was an amazing experience. But it was like the 130th call I made. And then a podiatrist, I worked with a podiatrist. And the way that I got the podiatrist was, and when I say, and I know that everyone says this, but like exhaust all of your connections, I mean exhaust all of your connections, because the way that I got the podiatrist one was I just was going through every friend, colleague, friend of a friend. Like, I'm sure I irritated people, and I had this one girlfriend that I had met briefly at the hospital I worked at who had done her residency there, and she was in podiatry, and we hit it off really well. And I snapped her. I didn't have like any other way of connecting to her, but I Snapchatted her. And I was like, hey, totally, I know this is random, and I told her my spiel about how I really needed hours to finish my program and COVID and all this stuff. And she's like, girl, I got you. Her uncle like owned a podiatrist office and got me in. And then I asked my primary care doctor. So my primary care doctor, I'm fortunate enough that I love her and we are friends, and she's my doctor and she's amazing, and I can call her whenever I need anything, basically. And so I was apprehensive to include her in this part of my life because it was almost like the don't crap where you eat. I don't want to say the swear word because I don't think you're supposed to on YouTube. But anyway, she said absolutely yes. So my advice to you would be is to even try your own, if you have like a good relationship with any of your doctors, including your primary care, like reach out to them too. Maybe they will take you as a student. Just something worth trying, because it actually worked out for me. So that's how I got my clinicals. It was hard. And I spent an entire year basically biting my nails thinking that something was going to fall through because of COVID. All right, for these next questions, I'm going to try to move it along a little more. The next question, I want to purchase an online test bank. There are so many. Do you know of a good one or two? So for test questions, for practice questions for the boards exam, I can tell you what I did, and I think that it worked. I passed. So I did the leak questions. Those you have to do. Like if you do nothing else, do the leak textbook cover to cover. If you do nothing else. And that's because it's really very in line with what you're going to see on your boards exam, and it covers everything that you need to know. The questions are great. The way I did it was I did the test bank questions basically twice through. The first time I didn't do as well. The second time I did really well because I was repeating the same questions and I read the rationales. If you do nothing else, do that. I don't want to say that's sufficient for passing your boards, but it's maybe. And then also I did the FNP mastery questions, and those were I feel like much more difficult than the leak questions, but there were some curveballs on the boards exam. And with any of the test bank questions, I think the biggest, most important part is that you're reading the rationales, because that's where you're learning and understanding like the concept and why. And so, because you're not going to get the exact same question that you did on leak or on FNP mastery, you're going to get something similar on your exam. And so you need to read the rationales to understand the concept, so that way when you get a similar question, you understand. Did you start looking for a job before passing your boards or wait until you were certified? I figured waiting makes sense, but one of the docs at my last clinical site recommended looking, and now I am panicking. LOL. Well, definitely don't panic. Now is not the time to panic. You don't have no pressure to get a job right now. Don't panic. But I would start looking. I absolutely would start looking. I would treat every clinical that you do as like a job interview, because it isn't guaranteed to get a job right when you graduate. I think that's like one of the best options, or one of the best opportunities that you have for getting a job as a new grad, especially if you don't have any connections. Also, obviously, it's all in who you know. And I know that's horrible, but that's the truth of it. I mean, so networking is huge. If you don't know people, start getting to know people. At your clinicals, start talking to people. Get to know, and not just the one person that you're shadowing. Get to know the MAs. Get to know the other providers. Get to know the office manager. Get to know the staff and make yourself an integral part of their little community that they have built there, in that wherever you're at. In your nursing job right now, network there. Really just network, because that helps you. I mean, it's not to say that you can't get a job without having a connection. You'll just have to work a little harder, and you're going to have to be that much more diligent. My mom would always tell me, like, the squeaky wheel gets the grease. I've said it in other videos. Like, you have to be heard. You have to call back. You have to follow up. So the next question was, which areas are not oversaturated? I will graduate in December and held off thus far on looking for a job. What are the best platforms? So kind of, again, what I was just saying, I think your clinicals are a great opportunity to potentially get you a job. Networking, obviously. As far as like which areas are not oversaturated, from my experience, I've seen a lot of like the urgent care, minute clinic, those type of facilities hiring. And even if it's not something that you want to do right then and there is something to building your resume. Like, even if you took a job that you didn't love, in an area you didn't love, or in a position or in a specialty that you didn't love, like everyone is aware, people want experience. So I would say take the job, build your resume, and continue while you have something maybe that you don't particularly love. Continue to look for something that will fulfill your passion, in the role as a nurse practitioner. So I would try like urgent cares, minute clinics, those type of things. That's purely anecdotal. This is off of what I've seen. If anyone has any input on that, I'd be interested to hear as well. And what are the best platforms? I mean, so a lot of places I would look right on the job website. And I feel like that gets forgotten sometimes. Like, go to these urgent care websites. There's usually like a careers tab there. Call them up. If it's something you're really interested in, walk in and say, hey, I'm a new nurse practitioner. Here's my resume. I'm like local to you and I'm extra interested because this would be a great commute and this is in my community and I really want to be working within my community, something along those lines. Maybe just putting a face to your voice will be that extra push that they need to call you back for an interview. Also, Indeed, that's what I used also when I was looking for a job, even though how I ended up getting my job was through a connection that I had. So how to get the first job if everyone is looking for 2 years of experience? That was the next question. And I mean, yeah, see, so everyone's really worried about getting a job. And I stick with what I said. Your clinicals are your job interviews. Exhaust all of your network connections. And the squeaky wheel gets the grease. Follow up, call back, make yourself known. If you have to go in, put a face to your voice. Yeah. All right, so this question says, what did you find helpful for reviewing lab interpretations? And so I've said this before. I guess the resource that I found most useful for reviewing labs would be the practice guidelines for the family nurse practitioners. And I don't have it here with me because I leave it in my work bag in my car. I feel like everything is probably infested with germs at this point, even though I try to wipe it down, whatever. It stays in my car. But it's the practice guidelines for family nurse practitioners, and there's actually a whole section on lab interpretations. And it's so useful. I reference it all the time. And I don't have to reference the textbook as often, but I still always have it on me, and it is super useful. So if you haven't got that book yet, I highly recommend it. All right, so I think that's going to be it for today. I think I answered most of the questions. I know I didn't answer all of them. Some of them were a little hard for me to answer on this, and maybe I'll make more in-depth videos later on to answer some of the other ones. But thank you so much for all of the great questions. Really, they were really great. I know I rambled on a lot of them, so hopefully I can cut this down and make it a little bit more easy to follow. But yeah, if you guys like this video, let me know. Maybe I'll do another one like this in the future. Until next time, I wish you guys all the very, very best. I'll talk to you soon. Bye.